We're on Daf Lamed Hey, Amud Aleph in Beitsa, Mesechus Beitsa, and we're trying again to understand Rav Shimi Bar Ashi, who is coming to attack Mar Zutra. Mar Zutra was himself trying to support his father, who felt that Shabbos is Koveya for Meiser, can make something. Right, Shabbos has the power to make something chayiv and meiser, even if it's missing certain criterion that we normally need. We normally need a finished product. We normally need it to be brought into the house, into the storage area. And we're saying Shabbos makes something chayiv and meiser even without that. So Mar Zutra is trying to prove what his father said from our Mishnah in Beitsa. Says you stand over muksa, you make a declaration, and if it had been a normal year, not just the Shemitah year, it would have been usher to eat the next day because of Meiser. It means whatever I said did make it Chayiv and Meiser. What did I say? All I said was I want to eat this tomorrow. So it's either the fact that I want to eat it tomorrow, that very fact that I want to make this my Suda is enough to create the Chiyuv Meiser, or the fact that I mentioned Shabbos, that I want to eat this tomorrow, and the fact that it's Shabbos. That I'm designating it for a Shabbos eating is what makes it Chayiv and Meiser. That would support Reb Nachman's theory. So Mar Zutra is trying to support his father from our Mishnah, and there's a Makshan who's trying to knock that down, which we ended up showing he's wrong. That it really is not Dibur. It's not just saying you want to eat it the next day. That's enough. Must be the Shabbos factor. So Reb Shimi Bar Ashi is getting involved, and he's saying, no, don't, not so fast. Maybe we could still go back to saying it's a Dibur, but then we have to deal with the fact that Rebbe Elazar holds at Shabbos, right? He's going to agree in part, right? That part of what we said is true. Rebbe Elazar needs Shabbos to be Koveya for Meiser. It's not enough of a Dibur. But he's going to try to claim that Rebbe Elazar holding that position is not the central Jewish position. So even if it's a position that he had a right to hold because he was a great rabbi, but it doesn't mean that's a proof to us when we're trying to say over the halacha. So that's something we have to deal with now. Reb Shimi Bar Ashi's taking it to a new level because he's giving in on the one hand. Yes, Rebbe Elazar says Dibur's not enough, you need Shabbos, but trying to deflect that proof and trying to say, again, that Reb Nachman doesn't really have a proof from here. Mar Zutra's wrong. We can't support his father from here, because still we could say that the central opinion of the rabbis who disagreed with Rebbe Elazar and certain things would disagree here as well, and they would say that Shabbos is not enough. You need a dibur, right? You need a dibur or whatever, or maybe just the fact that you need it to be a finished product. In the meantime, we're going to see more of Rav Ashi as we go along, so we don't have to understand it completely right now. Just we know what he's up to. He's up to that argument, that trying to deflect the proof from Rebbe Elazar. Someone wants to ask something?
Yeah, just also the second mission, the first example that we brought for the kids hiding the food away.
That's the first mission.
Yeah, the first mission. They don't actually say from here we're going to eat, but they actually go one step further and they put it on the table. They hide it away.
Where do you get table?
It's an action thing, right?
Okay.
So it's a very definite thing that they're doing. It's not Yibur.
I hear what you're saying. Maybe they need a stronger action to dedicate it to Shabbos, but the Gemora doesn't seem to differentiate.
Yeah,
once you dedicate it to Shabbos,
yeah.
if you dedicate something to Shabbos, that's enough. I don't know, maybe you're right. Maybe you could argue you need a strong dedication through a Maisa. But the Gemora doesn't seem to say that. It's a good point.
Just the three things I was thinking about.
What did you just say Shabbaton last year?
Mm-hmm.
The very first Mishnah that the Gemora brought, way back on the previous Amud, right after the Mishnah, right? It brought Tinokos.
Yes.
Now that case was where, in essence, they're dedicating this fruit for Shabbos.
Yes.
They're saying we want to eat this tomorrow, but they never actually say it. What they do is an action which proves that that's what they want it for. They want it for Shabbos. Not hiding it away, in the sense that we're doing an action to set aside for Shabbos. I think what Shabbatai was trying to say was that maybe in the end of the day, maybe we need a strong Maisa like that to dedicate it to Shabbos. Maybe just saying you want it to be for Shabbos is not enough. I'm just saying, I hear what he's saying, like Rashi said a similar thing recently, that there's kind of a hierarchy between Dibur by itself as opposed to with the Maisa is much stronger. There's no question, but in this particular case, I'm not sure why. Maybe you have a good point. We have to could spend time analyzing why. But I think from Rashi, it was mashma to me at least that he's not differentiating. He's just saying it's called dedicating it to Shabbos. Once you say that, maybe the very fact that the Gemora says that our Mishnah could be the same kind of a thing, dedicating it to Shabbos. But in our Mishnah, he doesn't do anything to the fruit, right? Doesn't do any action. And yet the Gemora is willing to say that's called dedicating fruit to Shabbos, and that made it chayiv and meiser. Well, if that, then you see the Gemora itself made the equation and said, true, there we have the tinokos doing an action, but it seems you don't need the action because when the Gemora wants to learn from our Mishnah, which in essence we accepted the idea of it, we just said, it may not have a proof, but there was a possibility that our Mishnah was saying. And the truth is, if you look at Rashi on Rav Shimi Bar Ashi, he does say our Mishnah is really because of Shabbos.
Actually, the first Rashi says much the same thing.
Which Rashi?
The first Rashi in the page.
Valo Mosra Chosro?
Jose.
Yeah.
Ita milit in he's asking the same thing. How can words make this kavod? Even action, right?
Right.
Same thing.
No, I agree with you. Rashi did say there's a hierarchy, and that definitely actions speak louder than words, as we say. But for some reason, when it came to dedicating to Shabbos, we didn't say the same exact thing. When he's talking about just saying, I want this to be my Suda, we can understand that if an action doesn't help, make it chayiv meiser, then words can't help. But you see, maybe it's because of the. If we think about it, if we analyze it, there we're saying if action doesn't help, then kol shekena words can't help. But the other way around, we can't necessarily. We do see later the Gemora says there's some kind of a kal v'chomer between Truma and Shabbos, but the way we're saying it now, between action and dibur, the way Rashi says it, it makes a lot more sense. If actions don't help, then kol shekena dibur won't help. But just the other way around, we can't necessarily know. If actions help, does that mean a dibur won't help? We can't necessarily say that. I know if the child did an action to dedicate it for Shabbos, it helped. Does that mean if I just say that I want it for Shabbos, it won't help? No, it might have been true, but there's no real reason to say that. It doesn't actually follow. Okay. So let's try to go on now. We have Rav Shimi Bar Ashi coming to deflect whatever we were trying to prove from Rabbi Eliezer. So let's see how it works out in the actual words. Okay, so we had Ka'amras, that whole idea of Rabbi Eliezer Ka'amras, what's behind those words, right? There's a whole thought process there. And then the Gemora says Rabbi Eliezer L'Taimei, because really, how are we translating that now?
According to his shita.
He's only. I would say I put in the word only as like an extra word to make it flow better. He's really only saying it according to his own ideology. Meaning, yes, Rabbi Eliezer holds Shabbos is Koveh for Meiser, but he's only saying that because he holds that, let's say, something spiritual can make something chayiv and Meiser, right? A spiritual, let's say, mitzvah can make something chayiv and Meiser. How do we know that Rabbi Eliezer holds that way? The Amar.
Amar, he says.
Because he
He
says.
says. Let's see. Truma kavua. Truma's kavaya. From Beitsa. Holshik came Shabbos. Also, Shabbos is kavaya from Beitsa.
Okay, so that's a new way of thinking. Truma can be kovea for Meiser. Meaning, I did a part of a mitzvah to spiritually make a tikkun in this ochel. So therefore, Shabbos, dedicating it for Shabbos, which is a bigger tikkun, let's say spiritually, kol shekena will make it chayav and Meiser. Okay? So that's true in Rabbi Eliezer, but the Gemora is saying specifically Rabbi Eliezer would say that only because he holds these spiritual things work, right? Dedicating things to spirituality makes it more chashuv, makes it chayav and meiser, right?
Yes.
But we're going to try to say that the Chachamim argue.
That's an honor we told in the Mishnah. Perish Tarman. Perish Truma taken off, right?
Yeah, literally, you're saying it in a passive way. It was taken. But it was really an active verb. He separated them. He took them. He took off Truma. Paris, which a man came along and took Truma on them. So our example was 100 apples, right? And he took off 2. So he has now done Truma to this pile, as it were.
Yeah.
And even if it's not like apples not a great example, even though I keep using the example of apples. The truth is not the greatest example. Why? Because we need something that's lo nigmar malach. We'll see in a minute. Right? We're stressing that.
Grapes.
So grapes would be good, right? Grapes are a good thing. Maybe there's other fruit that we look at, and not even we look at, but at whatever time period we're talking about, they would look at it as a non-finished product. So if you have something that's a not-finished product, so therefore we have this chiddush in Rabbi Eliezer that peros shetarman, if a man came along and took off truma from a pile of fruit or vegetables, and it happened to be shaloi,
nigmar malachto. And shaloi nigmar malachto before the kind of finished product.
right, meaning eaten before it's finished. So he went ahead and did truma on this pile of fruit that wasn't even really finished. And still, Rabbi Eliezer Oser, which means
to eat them as a snack.
if you forbid someone to eat something as a snack, that means it's already what? Chayav and Meiser. Right? Because if it wasn't yet Chayav and Meiser, you could eat from it a snack. That's the point. But when does it become usher to eat even a snack of food when it's already Chayav and Meiser? Right? It's like I brought food into the house, it's already Chayav and Meiser, I can't say now, well, I'm just going to eat a snack. No, I don't care if you can eat a snack, you have to take Meiser. Once it's Chayav and Meiser, you have to take Meiser. Even if you want to just do a snack. So Rabbi Eliezer is saying it's usher to eat from this fruit, even a snack. What he's really saying, in other words, is that it's chayav and meiser. So that means, according to Rabbi Eliezer, what he just did made it chayav and meiser. What did he just do to truma? It's fruit that didn't finish yet, not finished product. Doesn't matter.
What's truma actually? I know what meiser says.
What is truma? Meaning how much you have to take off and so forth.
Yeah.
The Rabbanim were gozer, it should be 1/50th.
So it's different to meiser Yerushalyim, right?
Yeah. It's a very small amount. In fact, the Gemora says that from a Torah point of view, even one chita, poter says a kri, one little grain of wheat would, if you took off one grain of wheat as truma, you would make the whole pile, which is like millions of grains, potter.
And this is goes to the Kohanim?
But the Rabbanan made a gezerah, it should be 1/50th, to be a normal generous donation of 1/50th. And it says if you give 1/40th, you're a very generous man. If you give 1/60th, you're a cheapskate. Okay.
The whole thing is a
What?
If you give a whole thing, whole
Nobody expects you to give all of your food away. That's the wrong religion. No.
I'm going to give a half an apple. I'm not to give a whole apple.
No, look, you can round off. Let's say instead of giving 2.1, I can only give 3. Okay, let's say it's not a big problem. Okay, but the main thing is that you're not actually being asked to give away so much. At the end of the day, it's a small amount. There's a funny midrash that says that somebody used to give away the Meiser, which is, let's say, out of 1,000 bushels, 100 bushels. And every year he gave away a little bit less because he felt like 100 bushels just waste, right? Till one year he wasn't giving anything. So they made a party for him. And they said to him, "We're going to celebrate." He said, "What are you celebrating?" "That you just became a Kohen." He said, "What do you mean I just became a Kohen? I wasn't born a Kohen." He said, "Yeah, you used to have 1,000 bushels and you gave away 1/10, 100 bushels to the Kohen, right? But now Hashem has given you 100 bushels. That's all he was able to grow in the end. Hashem gave him less and less produce. He thought he was going to get more, but he got less in the end. So he said, you must be a Kohen because Hashem just gave you the amount that you used to give to the Kohanim." So he understood what they were saying, right?
They started giving again?
They started giving better, I think. But another place actually says that the rodents attacked the field of a place that wasn't giving Meiser properly. I always said that's why it's called Meiser, because if you don't take Meiser, you're going to get mice.
That's nice.
But that might be just a bubble Meiser.
So Truma is taken off and it goes to the Kohen.
Yeah.
And then you take off Meiser Sheni.
No, Meiser. Meiser Rishon.
Moshe Rishon. And that goes to the Kohen as well.
No, it can, because he's technically a Levi, but it could go to any Levi, and I think they used to try to give it specifically to a Levi who's not a Kohen.
Oh, I see. That's Moshe Rishon. Oh, and what?
Now he's supposed to give from that, which is 1/10.
To the Kohen.
The Levi who just received his Meiser,
right.
he's supposed to give. It kind of, you think about it, just like a Yisrael has to give truma from his crop to the Kohen, the Levi who just got a certain amount has to give from what he just received to the Kohen. So that's called Trumas Meiser. But the Torah actually calls it 1/10 of 1/10. It's like saying, just like the Jew had to give you 1/10 of his crop, now you have to take what you just received to give 1/10 of that to the Kohen. But if you think about it, 1/10 of 1/10 is a very small amount. You know what 1/10 of 1/10 is? So imagine you have 100 apples again. I love the example of 100 apples. It makes it easier to think about. You have 100 apples, then forget about Truma, but how much would you have to give Meiser on 100 apples? 10. So now the Levi received 10 apples. Actually, the truth of the matter is he gets a little bit less, because if you give the Kohen first 2 apples for your Truma, then really you only have to give 1/10 of 98. So you only really have to give 9.8 to the Levi. But, okay, let's round it off. 10. So you gave the Levi 10 apples. Now how much is he supposed to give to the Kohen Trumas Meiser? 1/10 of what he just received. Now he just received 10 apples. If he got 10 apples, 1/10 of that would be what?
1.
What's it? That's right. 1/10 of 10 is 1. Right? So giving 1 out of 100, really, if you think about it. There used to be 100 apples here. He's only giving 1 to the Kohen, so it's 1/10 of 1/10. Right? It's 1%. That's why today, when we don't actually give to the Levi his Truma, his Meiser and stuff like that, it remains in the pile and we end up eating that. For whatever reason, that's the halacha today. We're allowed to do that. So that's why but you still have to separate Truma and Trumas Meiser. So how much do you have to separate? A little bit more, which is like 2 apples for the Kohen, right? That's 1/50th. Right? It's a small percentage, 2%. And then you're giving 1%
To the Levi.
right, which is 1/100. You should have given the Levi 10, but for whatever reason today we don't give we make a declaration about it, so it counts as if we had taken it off. We don't actually have to take it off and give it to the Levi today. For whatever reason, okay? So at the end of the day, what am I going to really take off for the Kohen? A little bit more than 1/100th. Because the 1/100th is Trumas Meiser, right? The 10th of the 10th. And then a little bit more than that is the Truma. That's what people give today.
That's what I'm going around.
How are you today?
I say, man,
I don't know where my bag is. Here it
see,
is.
you all that with this,
He goes and collects for the Yeshiva at lunchtime. Give him a bracha. I'm giving you from what he gave me, so the Yeshiva should have success. Meiser mina meiser. Okay, sorry it's not more. It's Maharabah.
Very good.
Go to, be well. Have a great day. Go to, you too, be well. See how many things he said? Good Shabbos, good HaKodesh, and he said everything.
I see you speak English, but he's actually Hebrew speaking.
Probably he's like us. A lot of people have children grow up in Israel who learn to speak it in the house, but it's not really that fluent because they don't really speak it in school or with their friends. So it's funny that the more we speak to him in English, the better his English gets. It starts to come out. Really sweet guy, the Beitsa. Just so funny, like when he first came, you thought he's like this guy, like he almost doesn't know how to speak. And then you speak to him a little bit, he turns out to be this really nice guy. Who is he? I have no idea. He's just been coming here for a few years. I don't even know what he collects for. I assume his family, but you never know. Very special. All right, so what are we holding by? So we described the whole process of Truma, Trumas Meiser, and all of that. And after all of that, then there's a Meiser Sheni, which is only the first 2 years, and then the third year, Meiser Ani. Then 4 and 5, you have again Meiser Sheni, and the 6th year Meiser Ani. And then we know in the 7th year there's no Meiser. But that second Meiser can vary, because if it's Meiser Sheni, you take it yourself and eat it in Yerushalyim. So it's not from giving it away. And if it's Meiser Ani, which is 2 out of the 6 years, then you're giving it to a poor person. So, all right. But the main thing that we're trying to discuss here is the Meiser, and the fact that if you took Truma off first, which is what you normally do, but apparently you wait till later in the process to do it. He did it earlier, but even at that early premature stage, if he did do it, in a sense he's perfecting spiritually the other food to some extent. It's making a chashuv enough to be chayav and meiser. That's what Rav Elazar holds. And Rav Shimi Bar Ashi is trying to extrapolate from that. He's saying, look, if that kind of a tikkun, that spiritual tikkun, is enough to make it chayav and meiser, kol shekain, when I mamish dedicate something to Shabbos, that's a much higher level of tikkun, because I'm dedicating it to an achila chashuv, as Rashi says. As we said earlier in the sugi also, that there's a pasuk in Yeshaya calling it oneg, karas l'Shabbos oneg. So there's a lot of reasons to call the Chil of Shabbos chashuv and everything. So therefore, Kol Shekain Rebbe Elazar would hold that it's enough to make it chayiv and meiser. Okay, so what's the main point of Reb Shimi Bar Ashi? Once he ties this whole thing of Shabbos being koveya to Truma, and saying Rebbe Elazar is only saying Shabbos is koveya because he's already made a decision about Truma being Kodeya. And they go together, right? They go together because it's like a spiritual tikkun. So if Rabbi Elazar has that shita, good. Goes into hate.
He says they rely on it, right?
But don't decide for all of Klal Yisrael that that's not going to be the halacha. In other words, if you would really use this to prove something about Reb Nachman, when they asked Reb Nachman the halacha, when Rav asked Reb Nachman about the halacha, he was saying, what's the halacha, not what does Reb Elazar hold. He wanted to know the halachas, and Reb Nachman told him the halacha for all of Klal Yisrael. So to come along and say, well, I can prove that from Rabbi Eliezer, is missing the point. That's what Reb Shimi Bar Ashi wants to accomplish. So he's giving in a bit to Mar Zutra. Yes, you're right. In our mission, Beitsa, it's Rabbi Eliezer, so you can say it's really Shabbos and it's connected to what he holds by Truma. But as far as the general halacha, it's not going to sway us. It's not going to prove anything.
Is this Rabbi Eliezer, is Shimon Bar Yochai's son?
I think that's Elazar, not Eliezer. It's called, and I don't think they call him Rebbe Elazar, because there is another Rebbe Elazar. There's actually a Rebbe Elazar Zanamora, and there's a Rebbe Elazar Zatana, and the one who's the son of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, I think they actually call him, they make the point of calling him Rebbe Elazar Bar Rabbi Shimon. So I think when he's never called Rebbe Elazar, just Rebbe Elazar, I think. But I might be wrong. But I'm pretty sure that when they do talk about him, they talk about him as Rebbe Elazar Bar Rabbi Shimon.
Yep.
Okay. So we see the direction that he's going in. He's trying to minimize the influence that we're going to try to get from Rabbi Eliezer. It's true he holds a certain shita, but it won't influence us. Why won't it influence us? Because he's a das yachid. I hope he forgives me in the grave for having called him a weirdo, but just to get the point across, that's what I want. In a sense, that's when you say someone's a das yachid, what you're really saying is that it doesn't influence halacha. Wow! What a treat!
Hey.
See? Things are improving. Today you didn't even call me and ask me about the bus. The 3 bus? 3 bus? The 3 never shows up anymore. I even called yesterday and complained, by the way. You should know, I got a man on the phone. I was so excited. I got someone actually on the phone. I told them our problem. I said, there's been 20 people waiting in the sun for the 3 bus to show up. And the person who, the other number, said, yes, it's coming 11:30. No, it came closer to 12 o'clock. It was horrible. I called him up. It was lumber in Tel Aviv. And I told him, it's crazy.
Not even 1 o'clock. That doesn't show up.
So from now on, I told my class, I was already I was more than a half hour late for my shir. I was so embarrassed. I said to them, my bli netter, makabel, never to wait at that. If it happens to come, or someone, says it's coming in a minute, I can wait for a minute. But other than that, you just have to walk down to Mem Gimel.
What did he say to you?
He said, wait a minute, and he put on the music for a while.
It's a 15-20 minute walk.
Yeah, no, it's not, no. It's all downhill,
Yeah.
and then just crossing over.
Yeah.
It's really, no, it can't.
15 minutes.
No.
You're a fast
Not,
walker.
well,
Quick walk.
it's all downhill. You should carry your skateboard with you, so that all you have to do is...
That's the thing. I was thinking to myself, maybe I should get some sort of vehicle.
Skateboards enough. Anyhow.
Sort of electronic things that the kids stand on,
Yeah, I know.
I told them another problem was that they used to
two
put
sets
the...
of wheels. The little
That's
wheels.
right.
Yeah. See, a lot of people with that kind of bicycle now, that it's like half bicycle, half... Oh. I actually, one summer I was in a place working, but also a bit of a vacation. Someone bought me a moped. That was a big mistake. I wiped out. I got in such a bad accident on that moped. Thankfully I didn't break bones, but it was very painful.
Unless you're experienced in it.
Yeah, 'cause it's weird. It doesn't have the same...
It's a moped, those things.
It's very similar to what these people are driving around. It's like more like a bicycle, but with a little engine attached, and it's like faster than a bicycle, but it's not the same kind of maneuverability as a regular motorcycle. So it's a very deceptive thing. It slides very easily on like a little bit of gravel. So I was on a road that had a lot of gravel and just completely wiped out.
I'm going to get one of these.
Gravel is bad,
Then we can have Naftali come back to this year.
which is,
It's Lon's Bonnie Davis.
Tell them Shabbatai is now converted.
The one from the church.
Started wearing a leather
that
jacket.
looks like a,
Harley Angels.
That's
Yeah.
that one
It's
he's
a
off.
Harley, yeah.
heck of a wiping out before.
He
Yeah.
was Mr. Israel, amateur Israel. Really nice guy.
Anyhow, I just made a rule. I just start. You have to walk down, but you know, it's not the worst walk. It's not the worst walk. I do feel bad because it used to be a very nice bus, and they for some reason decided either it's a thing against the From. I think because it's a specifically From line. So my understanding is no. So let's say you have two bus lines. One of them desperately needs another driver, and then you have this 3 bus that services only the From. So what are you going to do? Okay, they'll get another bus in 15 minutes. But in the meantime, we'll send our driver over to this one. It needs a driver right now. It's like prioritizing. They started prioritizing away from the bus that's only used by the From. That's my very homespun theory. But I really believe it must be true because it's so sad. It used to be a much more reliable bus.
You could be
Should
a
have a van, one of those large vans.
you could be a Das Yachi. With all
Yeah,
respect, you could be a Das Yachi.
yeah.
So what do we have to do?
I think Egged is a Das Yachid. How many people? Bas Yachid, yeah. There's so many people wanted the bus. I think that anyone who sends the bus somewhere else has got to be Das Yachid.
Because it's a monopoly on the
No, there are a few other bus companies, super buses,
Lemonade.
Look, I think I'm just happy if there is a number to call and complain. I think we should all call and complain because it's so important. It's a bus that we all rely on.
That's it. Also 52 I hate sometimes.
We're here.
59 is good and 6...
Some of the other ones are very reliable.
59
Even when you're sitting at the 3 bus stop, you see the 14 comes a bunch of times, the 66 comes a bunch of times. All these other buses are much more regular. They're not that same bus stop.
The 52 is notorious.
I'm saying, but they obviously just don't care so much about the 3 for some reason.
Maybe a payoff.
Yeah.
So the 52.
A payoff.
But the point is, I think if you get enough people calling and complaining, it might do something. It might help them to move.
You see the driver behind the moped.
Anyhow,
Oh, okay.
look, if everything was perfect, we also might not die for Mashiach, you know.
It's also true.
If this is your only motivation for dying for Mashiach, at least, you
Yeah,
know.
once you got it there. So, okay, so which line are we on?
Well, we have now
Discussing
worked our
those.
way down gradually, I think 4 lines, where we ended up showing this new Mishnah, really, Parashatarman. You see Parashatarman there?
Peyrod Shetarman.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So,
fruits that you gave Truma.
right, so let's imagine there's a pile of fruit out in the field, right? If it's in the house, then it's Chayv and Meiser anyways. So it has to be out in the field. And let's say you saw your Cohen friend walking by, and you say, look, I really want to hop around and give the Cohen his Truma right now. As soon as you take off the few apples or whatever it is to give him his Truma, according to Rebbe Lazar, it's going to turn out the rest of the fruit automatically becomes Chayav and Meiser, which is much earlier than it would normally have become Chayav and Meiser. So the very fact that you decided to take this step up and do the Truma right now, you've affected all the rest of the fruit, the other 98 apples, so to speak, and they're also now Chayav and Meiser according to this. So that's what it's talking about. A pile of fruit which wasn't Chayav and Trumas and Meisers yet, because it's out in the field and it's not yet worked properly, just like a raw pile. Shetarman, but he decided to take Truma from it, which is theoretically 2%, 1/50th. In our mashal, 100 apples, it would be 2 apples. And what? Even if it's lo nigmar malachta, even if the fruit that we're speaking about is a fruit that still needs to be developed, right? Some fruits, when they come off the tree, they're not yet ready for the consumption. They have to be developed, they have to be processed. A lot of fruits have to be processed first before they can be properly eaten. So therefore, if they're not really ready to eat yet, that's normally not chayiv and meiser. But Rebbe Lazar is going to say, even so, you took truma from that pile, you already gave it a certain chashivus just by taking off truma, so the whole rest of the pile is going to be chayiv and meiser. So Rebbe Lazar says, what? Rebbe Lazar, oser lechol mehem arai. You know what arai means? Doesn't mean like a wry sense of humor.
I heard this word before.
We talk about it usually in terms of sukkahs, right? We say sukkahs is diros arai, temporary dog, right? In terms of eating, we also use the same kind of reference in terms of eating. We call, there's such a thing as an achilas kavah and achilas arai. Basically, yeah, it's like a snack. So it's like the opposite of a suda, so to speak, right? So now, normally, if something's not yet chayiv and meiser, so then you're allowed to eat from it without taking meiser. That's pretty straightforward. But the Chazal said, but if you end up making a real suda out of it, then you should really take meiser. But if you're still keeping it down to a snack, and it's not really chayiv and meiser anyway, so you don't have to take meiser, right? It's not a problem. But he's saying here that you went ahead and you took off some truma from this pile. So you basically are saying, you're making a declaration, this food is finished for me, right? This food reached a situation where I want to start giving to the Kohen his truma, etc. So in a sense, you've decided that this is a finished pile of fruit, even though it's really not. So you've given it a certain chashivus, plus you fixed it up, right? By taking truma, you fixed it up partially, halachically. So you've made it more chashuv than it was before. So now you're given a certain level of tikkun, of chashivus, so therefore, Rebbe Lazar holds it's chayiv and meiser. So where are we going to see the real difference? That now you can't even eat a snack from this without taking meiser. When he says it's usher to eat it, what he means is until you just now decide to take meiser from it, you can't eat it. Not even a snack. But as far as our sugi is concerned, the way we would express Rebbe Lazar's opinion is, what he just did made it chayiv and meiser. He just made a tikkun called truma, which just means he basically, out of a pile of 100, he took off 2 and gave to the Kohen who's walking by. But by doing that, he made a kind of a declaration about the rest of the 98 that are sitting there, that they're now reached a new stage, and they're going to be chayiv now in meiser. Right? So even though it's expressed in one way, don't eat from it even a snack, but for our purposes, in our sugi, it helps to talk about it the other way, to say, what you just did made it chayiv and meiser.
So he's comparing it to Shabbos.
He hasn't yet given meiser, he gave truma. Truma is a little bit that you give to the Kohen. And meiser, like the word, is 10th, a tithe, the 10th that you give to the Levi. And it happens to be that once the Levi gets his cut, so to speak, he has to give a 10th of what he just got, which is 1/100th of the whole pile in the end, to the Kohen. That's called Trumas Meiser.
Okay.
So that's the normal pattern of giving Trumas and Meiser. So you give your Truma, then you give your Meiser, and the Levi has to give his Trumas Meiser. And the last thing is either Meiser Sheni, if it's there's 7 years in the Shemitah cycle, right? The 7th one being Shemitah itself. But the first 6 years go in a pattern of the first 2, after you've given your Truma and your Meiser, you have to give another Meiser, but what? It's called Meiser Sheni. And the halacha of Meiser Sheni is you really don't give it away. What you do is you make sure you go up to Yerushalyim and eat in Yerushalyim. So in a sense, it's Hashem's trick to get you to come up to Yerushalyim even when it's not a Chag, and pay a visit, right? Because Tosu says that you learn a lot when you're in Yerushalayim, Yerushalayim and all of that. and you watch the Kohanim and their voda. Plus, when it is a Chag, you usually bring up all your all your stuff that you're supposed to bring. I'm supposed to bring my Sheni. I make sure to bring up during the Chag. I'm supposed to bring up other things that I owe the Beitsa Mikdash or I owe Hashem. I try to bring them up during the Chag when I'm coming anyways, because you have to come 3 times a year anyways. So you end up having a huge amount of this produce filling the streets of Yerushalyim. So in a way, it's making everything a lot more fun for the Chag, as it were, right? I bring up my 4 kilos, and you bring up your 4 kilos, and basically, BYOB. Everyone has a party afterwards, right? It becomes a festive atmosphere.
Schlepping and backboxing.
Yeah, schlepping, but at the end of the day, if everyone schleps to the party, you have a nice party, right? If everyone says, I don't want to schlep to the party, then you get to the party like, what? Where's everything? Did I miss it? No, nobody brought anything. They were too lazy. So, anyhow, that's just a small point that Meiser Sheni you don't actually give away, you bring it up to Yerushalayim. But that's the first 2 years in the 7-year cycle, and then the 4th and the 5th year. In the 3rd and the 6th year, you don't do Meiser Sheni as the last Meiser after Meiser Rishon to believe. You do, instead of Meiser Sheni, you do Meiser Ani, which means you do give it away, but give it to the Ani. So those are all the different kinds of things you're supposed to give away to make a tikkun on the ochel that you do use for yourself. But we're only discussing now the idea of Meiser. What point does your food become chayiv and Meiser? So normally we say you need to have 2 conditions. It's a finished product, and you brought it into the storage area. So it's like, in 2 ways, it reaches final destination, as it were. But the Gemora says there's other things that can supplant that, like Shabbos, which is what we're majorly discussing here. And even Rebbe Lezer says over here, if you took Truma off, that also made the rest of the stuff Chayiv and Meiser all of a sudden, because you made a declaration now about the food, basically. So that's going to also make it Chayiv and Meiser. So Rabbi Shimon Bar Ashi is trying to say that just like Rebbe Lezer holds that's true, that if you just happen to take off Truma, you can make the whole pile Chayiv and Meiser. So too, he says Kol Shekain is true about Shabbos. The Rebbe Lezer would hold that when Shabbos comes in, or if you dedicate food to Shabbos, you automatically make it Chayiv and Meiser, the same way as when you took off Truma, you made the other food Chayiv and Meiser.
When you dedicate food to Shabbos, you automatically make it Chayiv and Meiser.
What?
Automatically make it Chayiv and Meiser.
Right. So the Gemora asked before, is it really true that Shabbos can do that? And Rav Nachman said it's true, Shabbos can do it, even if it's not a finished product, etc. But then the whole question has been since then, can we use our Mishnah in Beitsa as a proof of that? It's really the whole Geschäft. Can our Mishnah be used as a proof? It can't really be used as a proof. And now we're really back to that same question again, in the back door. We're in the back door. Why? Because we're admitting that Rebbe Lezer in our Mishnah, it says it's Chayiv and Meiser, but because of Shabbos. Right? But the Rabbanan who argue with him will say it's not true. And we're more interested in the Rabbanan of Rebbe Lezer, not really Rebbe Lezer. Because we want to know, halachically, is it really true that Shabbos can make things Chayiv and Meiser? And Rav Nachman said yes, so we're just saying, can we bring a proof to him? We're saying you can't really bring a proof to him. Because if you try to bring our Mishnah is Rebbe Lezer. We know Rebbe Lezer's opinion. Even taking off Truma makes things Chayiv and Meiser. Kol Shekain Shabbos makes things Chayiv and Meiser. But the Rabbanan who argue will say no. Okay. So the Chachamim, what matirim?
So it's allowed. Yeah.
What does that mean?
You let it either something which is not for Dava Shlod and Nikram Malachtan.
Right. So let's say in a case where you had a pile of unfinished fruit, whatever, unprocessed fruits.
You let it eat it.
And normally we'd say you're allowed to eat from it as a snack. But Rebbe Lezer said if you went ahead and took truma from it, which you didn't have to do, but you decided to do it right now, then you gave it a certain chashiva, so the whole rest of the pile is Chayiv and Meiser. And the Gemora says the same thing about Shabbos, but here the Rabbanan is saying no, they're matirim. What does it mean they're matirim?
They allow you to eat it.
They'll allow you to eat it as a snack, even if you've taken off truma from this pile, the rest of the pile doesn't get affected. It's not Chayiv and Meiser yet. since it's not chayiv and meiser, you can eat from it a snack because there's no chiyuv yet on taking meiser.
First was
It's
truma.
hard coming in the middle, so
It had truma taken off it.
even though you're a doctor, I would say be patient.
Taken off
Have
of it.
patience.
Even if it's a Yerushalyim Malachta.
So Rabbi Lazar, you would say even if it's not anymore malakto, Truma can make it chayiv meiser and Shabbos can make it chayiv meiser. But the Rabbanan would say no, Truma doesn't make it chayiv meiser, and we're trying to say even Shabbos doesn't make it chayiv meiser. Now, that has to be qualified, however, because we can't make a blanket statement about that. We have right at the beginning of the Gemora over here. Right after the end of the Mishnah, the Gemora started out with a Mishnah from Meiser. There's a Masechta called Maseches Meisrus in Zroim, right, in the first Seder of the Mishnayos. Just like there's a Maseches Kiloyim, there's Maseches Orla, there's a lot of Masechtas of these halachas that the whole Masechta is called by that halacha. So there's a whole Masechta called Maseches Meisrus. There's also Maseches Meiser Sheni, by the way, and Maseches Truma. And all these things that we talk about, they have their own masechtas. Just people don't always learn them because there's no Gemora on it. There's a Gemora Yerushalyim, but there's no Gemora Bavli. A lot of times people don't learn it up. And when you learn it in Mishnayos, it's not always easy to understand. In the meantime, so we brought a Mishnah at the very beginning that Tinokos, even little children who set aside food for Shabbos, makes it chayiv and meiser. So we can't say everybody disagrees with Rebbe Lazar, like Shabbos is never kovea for meiser. Yes, we have a Mishnah in Meisros that even little children who set aside food for Shabbos make it chayiv and meiser. So what are we really saying? The Rabbanan argue with Rebbe Lazar, Shabbos is not kovea for meiser. It's specifically in what we're talking about. If it hasn't been finished product yet, if it's an unfinished product, it hasn't been properly processed to the point where people would normally eat it, that's what we're talking about. That's the main machlokas, right? Can that be chayiv and meiser prematurely through something called Shabbos or through Truma or through whatever? We keep focusing on that because that's the big chiddush, right? That's where Rava didn't know. And Rav Nachman said, yes, Shabbos is kovei even for that. But here also we see in regards to Truma, that's the point of contention. Such a fruit that hasn't yet been finished, can the fact that I took off Truma make it chayiv and meiser or not? What? There was a case, right, where the Gemora says they set aside, they actually buried it. They buried these, I guess they knew their parents were, if they saw it. Yeah, they so like we used to do, we hid everything from our parents, right? They said, okay, we want to have a little Shabbos, owning Shabbos, we don't want our parents to know about these ta'anim, right? So they buried them. So the Gemara says they buried them. But the Mishnah says they buried them. But the Mishnah is making the point that even little children, who normally we say, if he's not bar mitzvah, what is his intention really accomplish? And I can't accomplish a halachic status of something, but we're saying no. Ironically, little children even have the intention to put something aside for Shabbos, make it chayiv and meiser. So if we see that even little children can do that, so we seem to agree with what Rabbi Lazar is saying, that Shabbos makes things chayiv and meiser. So what are we really saying? No. Over there when the children did it, you know why it worked? Because it was a finished product. Why was it a finished product? Because we were talking about what? Ta'anim. Ta'anim in their days was a finished product, right?
Figs.
People ate figs raw, right? Although the Gemora says clearly, if he decided to make jam out of his figs, right, or like we had when I was growing up, fig Newtons, right?
Oh boy. That's a blast from the past.
Makes these Gemoras a lot more palatable, literally. So then the date is not the finished product, so then the Gemara says, if you really intend to do more, you're going to grind it and crush it, make it into a jam like a fig Newton, so then it's not yet a finished product when it's in its original fig state. So then it wouldn't work, right? It wouldn't work. Shabbos wouldn't work. So that's the assumption. But we're saying now, that could be argued one way or the other. Can Shabbos be kovea for Meiser even when it's an unfinished product? Because we know it works when it's a finished product. The children did that. The children took the figs and they buried them, and it made a chayiv and Meiser. The only question is, if it's an unfinished product, can Shabbos sort of work its magic on that as well? Can it take something that's not really a finished product and make it so chashuv just because it's a Shabbos achila that it's going to be chayiv and Meiser? And Rashi actually says, if you set it aside for Shabbos, even if you don't end up eating it on Shabbos, now it's after Shabbos, so I'm not going to end up eating it on Shabbos. So you're going to say, still chayiv and Meiser, there's no real achila of Shabbos here. You're going to eat it on Motzi Shabbos or Sunday. Yes, just dedicating it to Shabbos was enough to make it chayiv and Meiser. So now even if you didn't end up eating it on Shabbos, now you're going to end up eating it on Motzi Shabbos. You still have to make sure you Meiser it before you eat it. Okay, so what's Reb Shimi Bar Ashi's main contention right now? Yes, you're right. Rabbi Eliezer holds that Shabbos is so chashuv that it can make something chayiv and meiser even if it's not finished product. But the only reason he really says that is because he holds even taking off truma could do that. So if truma can do it, meaning all I did was take off 2 apples out of the 100 and I fixed up the other 98, I didn't really do very much, and still that's enough to give it a chashivus that it's chayiv and meiser according to Rabbi Eliezer. So kol shekain Shabbos would make it chayiv and meiser, the Gemora says. But what about the Rabbanan who argue on Rabbi Eliezer here? And they say no, even if you took off 2 apples and gave them to the Kohen who was walking by, the other 98 are still what? Not chayiv and meiser. The fact that you fixed them up partially by taking off truma to the right, and the pile is somewhat fixed up now, that's not enough. It's not enough. It's still an unfinished product. It's still not really the kind of fruit that we normally say is chayiv and meiser. So therefore, the Rabbanan argue on Rabbi Eliezer. If they're going to argue on Rabbi Eliezer regarding truma fixing up the fruit and making it chayiv and meiser, so Reb Shimi Bar Ashi wants to say they would also argue on Shabbos. Even though we just said Shabbos is a kol shekain, that Shabbos has more power than truma. But here we're going to say if the Rabbanan say that truma doesn't work, we could at least suggest that Shabbos wouldn't work. We can't prove it because Shabbos is much stronger than truma. So maybe truma doesn't work, but maybe Shabbos does. Right? We can't prove that. It's not a logical step. But it's enough to say that if they argue on truma, then it's very possible they argue on Shabbos. So therefore, it's very possible you could bring our Mishnah in Beitsa. And Rabbi Eliezer is saying it's chayiv and meiser because of Shabbos, and it's true. We can prove that. It can't be dibur because by the case of the zaysim, we prove that if it can be put back in the original jar, just putting it on your plate doesn't make it chayiv and meiser, according to Rabbi Eliezer. So kol shekin and dibur wouldn't be enough. But in the Rabbanan, we can't say that. Because just like they argue about truma being kovea for meiser, very likely they argue about Shabbos. So what is really the thing that does it according to the Rabbanan? Dibur. Dibur would do it. But not Shabbos. Anyhow, that's neither here nor there. That's what we're trying to say. The proof from Rebbe Eliezer is not a good proof because we need to know about the Rabbanan. So now we say, what about the Seifa? There's a Rabbanan. In our Mishnah in Beitsa, there's a Rabbanan, not just Rebbe Eliezer. So can we still prove from the Rabbanan? So now Reb Shimon is again doing a very sort of devious thing. I mean, of course, not devious in the traditional sense. He had the right to do it. It's not bad midos, but it means he realized he can't prove it directly, only indirectly, so he had to go through the back door here and say he thinks Rebbe Eliezer would hold that way, but not the Rabbanan. But then we say, but look, the Rabbanan are part of the Mishnah, so we're going to have to now deal with that, the Rabbanan in the Mishnah. Okay, so let's continue on. Who would like to read? Tashma, Shabbatai.
Tashma, let me say, we'll come and hear a proof from the end of the Mishnah.
Right.
Last part of the Mishnah. From here we mock.
No.
From here we...
The Chachamim say you're not allowed to eat it on Shabbos until you took actually some effort to mark off which fruit you wanted. what did you say? Vayomer.
Yome mikan v'adkan, from here to here.
Right, so if he makes a definite mark on the food, even if he doesn't make a physical mark, but he makes some kind of demarcation of the food that he's going to eat the next day, that would help to make it eat, in terms of muksa, he took off the Isser muksa. And therefore it was a Shemitah year when there's no Isser Meiser, he'd be allowed to eat it on Shabbos. But then the Gemora makes a deal. Tsama.
What's this Rosh Hashanah?
Erev Shabbos.
Tsama, Erev Shabbos, the Shavuot. But on Erev Shabbos, the reason why Erev Shabbos.
No, you have to add in a word. The reason why you're allowed to eat the fruit in the Mishnah. Our Mishnah says you can eat it the next day, right?
Yeah.
But the reason why you can eat it the next day is because we're only dealing with Erev Shabbos of Shviz.
Which is free of Meiser.
The Lav Bar Isurehut, which is not at all shaykh to Meiser. Right? In the Shemitah year, there is no Chiyuv of Meiser. So then I can say, if you stood up next to it and you made a dibur that said you want to eat it the next day, so therefore there's not Muksa. And then since there's no Meiser in the 7th year, there's no Isser of eating it because of Meiser. So you're allowed to eat it. In that case, you'd be allowed to eat it on Shabbos. But the diuk is b'sha'ar shnei
Shavua. That on the remaining years of the non-Shavuos years.
What's the diuk? The rest of the years of the Shavuot cycle, of the Shemitah cycle. Ninu. In those years, it is.
It's connected to taking.
Right. In other words, it is shy to the Isser of Meiser. In those years that are shy to the Isser of Meiser, any year that's not a Shemitah year is a year that has an Isser of eating Meiser. So then they would be what?
Asurim.
There would be Asurim. That's the deal. Our Mishnah says if you stood up on Erev Shabbos of Shemitah, made this declaration, and the next day you can come eat it. Why? The declaration says I want to eat it tomorrow, that takes off the Isser of Muksa. And the fact that he made a declaration also makes it Chayiv and Meiser, but on Shemitah there's no real Meiser, so therefore you're allowed to eat it without taking Meiser. But on the rest of the years of the 6 year cycle, 6 years of the 7 year cycle, you wouldn't be allowed. Because those years, by making the declaration, he takes off Muksa, but he makes it Chayav and Meiser, and there is Meiser in those years. And therefore you wouldn't be allowed to eat it.
What's the reason? My time, like Mishum, the Shabbos, Kavua,
So you just read a question and an answer.
So what is the reason that you cannot eat it during the...
No. What's the reason that in a regular year, that's not Shemitah year, you can't eat it the next day?
Yeah, because Shabbat makes it...
Lav. Is it not? It's a rhetorical law.
Oh, is it not because...
Is it not because of the fact that...
Shabbos makes it Kavua Ma'aseh?
That's right. So therefore, we're saying, even according to the Rabbanan, don't just tell me that you can prove Rabbi Eliezer holds it, that just like Truma, he holds it Shabbos is Kovea, or what. No, in this Mishnah in Beitsa, we have the Rabbanan as well. Right? They're also saying that if it would have been a regular year, it would have been Chayiv and Meiser. So therefore, theoretically, we have proof that Shabbos is Kovea. Right? On unfinished fruit.
No.
So we're saying no, that's not a proof. Because just like we originally tried to push off the proof from Rabbi Eliezer, and that didn't succeed because of the Zaysim, right? But now it's going to work in the Rabbanan. We're going to be able to use this in the Rabbanan. That what? Shiny Hassam.
It's different over there.
In our Mishnah, there's another reason why it's Chayiv and Meiser. Not because of Shabbos, but... Ani Ochel Lamachar.
Yeah, that he said that we will eat from here, and he marks it off from here to here.
He says specifically, this is the fruit I'm going to eat tomorrow. Having said he's going to eat that fruit tomorrow, so therefore Kava Lei, he made it Kavua. He made it like a permanent food that he gave it a chashivas, right? Like we were saying. Not because of Shabbos, just because he wants to use this as his Suda. So it's like saying, I want this to be my Suda. If you say you want something to be your Suda, it is. It's your Suda.
So we're back to Dibur.
Yeah. But remember, the reason why we rejected Dibur before is why? Because we could prove Rebbe Elazar didn't hold that way. Because we have him holding differently by Mosra Chosra. Remember the Mosra Chosra thing with the Zaysim? So that was only true in Rebbe Eliezer. You want to say Rebbe Eliezer holds a certain way? I can prove to you he doesn't hold that way from Mosra Chosra. Dibur's not enough.
See if you can return the Zaytim to the original place.
Right. So putting it on your plate, there's no greater designation of what I want to eat than putting it on my plate. And even putting it on my plate didn't make it Chayiv and Maisa. Kolshkin, if I just point to food and say, this is what I want to eat tomorrow. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's what the Gemora used in Rebbe Eliezer. We can prove that Rebbe Eliezer says that Dibur is not enough. Because if Dibur would be enough, then Maisa putting it on your plate would certainly work. But it's not true. As long as you can put the fruit back, putting it on your plate does zero. Right?
Yeah.
That's in Rabbi Eliezer. So that was enough to prove in Rabbi Eliezer that he holds that Dibur's not enough. So we had to back off and say, you're right. Like Rav Shimon Bar Ashi, if you look in the Rashi, that's the first step in Rav Shimon Bar Ashi. You're right. Our Mishnah is because of Shabbos. In whom? In Rabbi Eliezer. That's for sure. No question. Rabbi Eliezer would say in a regular year, by saying you want to eat it the day before, you made a Chayiv and Meiser. And that's only because of Shabbos, not because of Dibur, because Rebbe Elazar doesn't hold of Dibur. But going to the Rabbanan now, ironically, the Rabbanan don't hold of Truma bin Koveh for Meiser, just like they don't hold of Shabbos bin Koveh for Meiser. But what does do it? Dibur. And you can't bring me the Mosra Chosra thing. You can't bring me this special thing about I could put it back in the jar, so putting it on the plate didn't help. Because that was the Rebbe Eliezer. That only helped us to prove what he holds. We can't necessarily use that to prove what the Rabbanan hold, because it's not the Rabbanan talking. So therefore, we're going to be up the creek, really. So it's very deceptive, even though you think, oh, we already went through all this, right? We already proved Dibur doesn't do it. No, we have to remember. Who do we prove it in? Rebbe Elazar. And therefore now in Rav Shimi Bar Ashi, he's saying, okay, I'll give in to you guys. In Rav Shimi Bar, in Rabbi Eliezer, it is Shabbos that does it. It is Shabbos that's Koveh. But that's not going to prove for the Rabbanan. So I can still claim that the Rabbanan, who are in our Mishnah in Beitsa, that it's still the Dibur that does it.
So they'll hold of the Dibur.
They can hold of the Dibur. That's what he's like Mr. What do we call him? Antagonist?
Yeah.
Number 2. Right? He's like backing him up, but on another level now. He's saying, you failed because you were concentrating on Rebbe Elazar. But switch to the Rabbanan. In the Rabbanan you can still succeed.
It's good antagonist.
Yeah, it's a good antagonist, right? But he's being supported now, Rav Shimon Bar Ashi. Saying, in our Mishnah is Chayiv and Meiser the next day. Yeah. But is it because of Shabbos? Not necessarily. It could be the Dibur. We already proved Dibur's
declaration.
Yeah, because he stood up and said, this is the food I'm going to eat tomorrow. So by doing that, in a sense, he took it out of the category of snack and he made it a Suda. We already said, if you eat a Suda, it makes it Chayiv and Meiser. So Suda is Chayiv and Meiser. But the question is always, that's why the wording throughout the whole sugya is, Shabbos is Koveya for Meiser. This other thing is Koveya for Meiser, because it means I took it out of being a temporary object and I made it permanent. I mean, if you think about it, the two normal factors that make something Chayiv and Meiser are the most permanent things in the world. It's a finished product and it's in your house. Right? By us, that's like permanent with a capital P. So that becomes like the paradigm of that's super permanent. But are there other things you can call permanent to be Chayiv and Meiser as well? So you say, yes, if it's for Shabbos is so chashuv, it's considered a certain type of permanence. So that's called Shabbos is Koveya. Or like Rebbe Lezer said, that truma you take truma off of a pile, you've just made that pile very chashuv. It's like you've declared this no longer a temporary object in your life, it's not a permanent part of your life. So made it chayiv meiser. But the Rabbanan may not hold with that logic, right? That's not enough of a tikkun to really make it a permanent part of your life, to make it a permanent tikkun for being chayiv meiser.
I've just realized that the word kaveh is like a word, right?
Right.
It's like a kaveh, it's a permanent thing.
Right,
I just
right,
realized
exactly,
now.
exactly. And that's the same word you use, by the way, when you put on a mezuzah, likvoa mezuzah. Because that's really when you're chayiv mezuzah, when you're there for 30 days, it means you're permanent. It's some certain permanence. All right, so Reb Shimon Bar Ashi is trying to get to everything through the back door. Right? Yes, you've proven something about Rebbe Lezer, but I really think we should concentrate on the Chachamim. And when you think about the Chachamim, you realize they're not the same bag of fish. Right? Because let's say regarding Truma is not enough for them. If you take Truma off of a pile, you don't have to take Meiser according to the Chachamim. It wasn't Kovea yet. And in our Mishnah, where there's a diuk that it is whatever you did the day before, this declaration did make it chayiv and meiser. There is definite diuk there, but you could always say it's the dibur. Just the very fact that he's saying he wants to make this his suda would be enough. Right? We already saw that we accepted there's a kind of a svara like that. Just we said in Rebbe Lezer you can't say that, because if a dibur would be enough, then a meiser would certainly be enough. And here we had a case where Rebbe Lezer said you put a mamash on your plate, and it's not choveh and meiser necessarily. So now he goes with the same idea. Maybe the Rabbanan are because of dibur. Shabbatai's question.
Why did they make Shabbos? Why did the Torah mention Shabbos? My Ariya Shabbos.
So let's just get the word straight here. So ihachi,
So,
if it's really so that what? That the Rabbanan don't need Shabbos to be Kovea Meiser, Dibur's enough, then my area, which means what? What's area is an Aramaic word for speaking. My area is like saying, why is it speaking? Or what's the reason it's speaking specifically about Shabbos? My area Shabbos means why is it dealing with Shabbos? Why is it speaking about Shabbos? Right? If it really wanted to convey to me this idea that a man stands up next to a certain type of food, declares that he wants to eat it, and that itself makes it chayiv and meiser, if that's all you really wanted to teach me, then you could have done that very easily. What? Afilu b'chol nami, right? Even on a regular weekday, if I stand up over a certain food and say, this is the food I'm going to eat tonight, according to you, that makes it chayiv and meiser. You're trying to say the Rabbanan don't agree with Rebbe Lezer. It's not Shabbos that makes it chayiv, it's just the fact that he said he wants to eat this as his suda. Basically being koveyed for his suda right now, by making a declaration. So then that can be done during the week. That's nothing to do with Shabbos. So why is the whole Mishnah structured around Shabbos? Gemora says, no, this was already answered earlier. We could say that the Mishnah is coming to teach us in that little bit about Shabbos, not because Shabbos is the important ingredient, but rather because I want to teach you that what? That's all Shabbos.
The table is prepared for Shabbos.
Okay. Prepared means not muksa, right? That's like a code word. Mukhan is the opposite of muksa. So by saying it's mukhan, it's like another way of saying it's not muksa. Right? In other words, when Shabbos came in, I couldn't eat it because no one had taken terms of meisus from this food. So you can say if it's usher at the beginning of Shabbos, it should be usher the whole way through. That's the rule of muksa. You're saying no. If in the middle of Shabbos someone came along and did a tikkun on it and did terms of meisus, which he shouldn't have, but he did it, and he was over the Rabbanon of doing it, then it will be muchan. I'll be allowed to eat it for my shalosh shudas, regardless of the fact that the Shabbos had started out as an inedible object. That's one of the new rules of muksa, that if the beginning of Shabbos, the only thing that prevented you from eating this food was an isser d'Rabbanan, that's not enough. Then if the isser for some reason goes away, like in this case, if someone came along and made an actual tikkun on Shabbos of taking terms of meiserus, then you'd be allowed to eat it technically because it wasn't real muksa. It was just, technically I couldn't eat it because it was tevel. And once I took care of that problem of tevel, which I shouldn't have, it was also midrabanan to do that, but I did it, or someone did it, now it's mutter to eat because it never really was muksa in the first place.
Is that what they call muksa?
Machmas Isser. That's what Rashi calls it back on Daf Chavav, when we're talking about taking apart a wall that wasn't cemented. It's an Isser D'Rabbanan. Rashi says that's not going to be considered a real muksa Machmas Isser, and Rashi brings our case. Rashi brings Tevel as his proof. Okay, we'll have to stop here.
Shkoyach.